odd thing when I had the prostate issue, I was prescribed this medication and it helped tremendously with the pain. Um, what I didn't realize at the time is that I felt pretty good overall. So I stopped
Okay.
when the pain was gone. And I went to the mental health place I go has there's a new procedure out. It's a gene therapy survey that I went through along with blood tests. And lo and behold, comes back this medication on a suggested list. And so I talked with the prescriber there, and we were kind of like, oh my gosh. So I'm trying this now, and it's making a major improvement. So it's kind of odd. Um, uh, but I have felt all along that this anxiety disorder that I have has something to do with something that's inflamed in the body,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
this medication appears to be helping that. So
Great.
I'm happy about that.
That's great. That's wonderful.
Well, on Wednesday morning, before I even got out of bed, my toe on my right foot started hurting.
When you ask old people how they are,
You see,
you're really in for it, aren't you?
my podiatrist is in Lafayette. It was a Wednesday. Yes, he was open all day. Should we call and should Brian skip his doctor's appointment? Should we go to Lafayette? No, we're not going to do that. So Dr. Swiker knew that we
This is the
probably,
podiatrist.
that's the podiatrist.
In Lafayette.
In Lafayette, and he knew we probably would not be coming back. So he had given us two names of two podiatrists up in this area. So Brian found the names and I called. They got me in that Wednesday afternoon, and he was located on Merrillville Road, right across from Meyer. And his day in Merrillville was Wednesday. I mean, I could not believe it. And I got in at 2:45. He took care of it. I'm fine. I mean, talk about being in the right place at the right
Yeah.
time.
Wonderful.
And the drive is about 90 miles shorter. So
Yeah. And
Good morning. Welcome to the worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Hobart, Indiana. My name is Carl Wolf, and my pronouns are he, him, and his. And I participate in the life of the church by serving on the board and acting as the church treasurer. We are a religious community of people with diverse beliefs and shared values. Our diverse beliefs are expressed in our 6 sources, and our shared values are expressed in our 7 principles, both of which can be found online at uua.org. Together we strive to grow spiritually, build community, and live our values in the world. We are currently in search for a full-time minister. When we do not have a minister in the pulpit, we invite members or guests to share a special meaning with us. This is one such Sunday, and we are very, very fortunate to hear from me today. We are currently streaming our service online. The joys and sorrows portion of our service is, however, private, and we will take a break from streaming during that part of the service. The sermon portion of the service will be recorded and will be available for future viewing via Facebook, YouTube, and the church website. Let your Facebook and Twitter friends know that you are attending worship with the hashtag First Unitarian Hobart. And so at this time, we ask that you please take a deep breath now and join us in a spirit of reverence. We begin to move against domination, against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move towards freedom, to act in ways that liberate ourselves and others. That action is the testimony of love as the practice of freedom. It's from Bell Hooks. Now we will light the chalice. Please join me now in lighting the chalice. The words, I believe, will show on the screen, or maybe not. We will say together, well, I should get the words. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together. Now we will have our opening hymn, number 1015 in the book, if you have one. If not, the words will show up on the screen. I know I can.
days be dark with storms and burdens weigh on my heart. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. Sorrow heals my soul, and burdens make me strong. Don't troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. My sister in my heart, my brother in my song. No troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. Don't troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. So brothers, take my hand, and sisters, sing my song. Though troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go
We will now have our affirmation of faith. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Now we will take a moment to greet our neighbors, to greet each other over Zoom. Say hello. I hope everyone's doing well. This congregation expresses our greatest joys and deepest sorrows in community. We believe that a joy shared is magnified and our sorrow shared is diminished. We pause, listening to what arises from within our hearts. Your joys and sorrows will not be streamed online, nor will it be part of the recording which is made public. Please take a moment, as you wish, to express your joys and sorrows in the chat box that is available through the Zoom function. We lift up these joys and sorrows and hold them in our hearts, including those too tender to be shared aloud. So, in late 1961, the civil rights movement turned its focus on conditions in Albany, Georgia. The federal laws at that point had made segregation in interstate travel. The federal laws had made segregation in interstate travel illegal and were enacted based on the work and the struggles of the Freedom Rides of 1961. And these federal laws were ignored by the city of Albany, Georgia. So students from the local state college were organized by the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee to test the law. And they were arrested in the hundreds and sent to jails throughout southwest Georgia. In the midst of this struggle, Dr. Martin Luther King was called to provide leadership, albeit not without controversy among the student leaders in SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Students in SNCC felt that the organizing style of King's Southern Christian Leadership Council would take agency away from the local leaders. Now, ultimately, this particular struggle is considered a failure, as the immediate demands were not met until years later. But not in the opinion of Howard Zinn, who was present in Albany. He wrote that social movements may have many defeats, failing to achieve objectives in the short run. But in the course of the struggle, the strength of the old order begins to erode. The minds of people begin to change. The protesters are momentarily defeated, but not crushed, and have been lifted, heartened by their ability to fight back. Dr. King was arrested in Albany and spent a couple of nights in jail there. He was in that cell, described by King as dirty, filthy, and ill-equipped, and the worst I have ever seen, that he began finalizing his previously delivered sermons to be included in the volume Strength to Love. It was in these sermons such as Love in Action and Loving Your Enemies, that King expounded on the idea of Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. King preached, within the best of us there is some evil, and within the worst of us there is some good. When we come to see this, we take a different attitude towards individuals. The person who hates you most has some good in him. Even the nation that hates you most has some good in it. Even the race that hates you most has some good in it. And when you come to the point that you look in the face of every man and see deep down within him what religion calls the image of God, you begin to love him in spite of. No matter what he does, you see God's image there. There is an element of goodness that he can never slough off. There is an element of good in your enemy. And as you seek to hate him, find the center of goodness and place your attention there, and you will take a new attitude. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgive them. Forgive them their transgressions on our person. Forgive them for their transgressions on our communities, the slaveholder, the segregationist. Forgive the proud boy. Forgive the oath keeper. Forgive the perpetrators of violence at the Tree of Life and the Emmanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Charleston, South Carolina, and the El Paso Walmart. We forgive the harm in their declaration. You will not replace us. We must forgive them because they are blind to justice and equality. They know not what they do. They have not sipped from the well of the 7 principles or Christ's teachings of love. Instead, they drink themselves blind with the moonshine of nationalism, xenophobia, and AR-15s. They are blinded in rage of a lost past and an uncertain future. They know not what they do, so we must forgive them and know that deep down the image of God is within them. Love and forgiveness. It's a tall order. Our first principle is about love and forgiveness, declaring the inherent worth and dignity of every person. We believe that all the dimensions of our being carry the potential to do good. The Reverend Hilary Landau Krivchenya said, and I'm paraphrasing, "The greatest challenge is to encounter those who have committed acts of evil and know that they have lost the strand that bound them to goodness, and to still see tarnished, betrayed, and violated their inherent worth, their dignity of their human being. They may or may not be broken beyond repair, dangerous, unable to live with the burden and blessing of freedom. They may need to be confined, constrained, and contained for our own and their own sakes. Yet we are called to remember, we are called to grieve, perhaps angrily, the loss of their goodness, even to sorrow for their brokenness, and called to treat them in such a way that we don't, while holding them accountable and keeping ourselves safe, become ourselves broken." So this raises a question for me. Is the first principle a neutral proposition? I mean, we can acknowledge that someone has inherent worth and dignity regardless, but where does that leave us in our actions to defend the inherent worth and dignity of another or of our own? As Krivchenya says, when you are unable to live with the burden and blessing of freedom and need to be confined, constrained, and contained for our own and their sakes, well, what then? In 2017, we held a vigil here after the events in Charlottesville. We sang "This Little Light of Mine," a song that I felt was just too passive considering the occasion. The Unite the Right participants, they should be held accountable for their actions. by any means necessary. How could we think about their inherent worth and dignity at a time like this? They had not only denied Heather Heyer her worth and dignity, they had denied their own worth and dignity. It was an urge that I could not let go of. But I had to understand it, and I wanted to understand it. I wanted to understand it in the context of peace and love, because it was love that was present, love present when people come together in the face of hatred. It was love that was being attacked in Charlottesville. For me, this was neither a joy nor a sorrow, but a call to play a role in spreading and defending love and peace. William Ellery Channing said that we should honor human nature for its struggle against oppression, for its growth and progress under the weight of so many chains and prejudices. These are the pledges of our celestial inheritance. It just is. Our UUA president, Susan Gray, who was in Charlottesville, she wrote, "It is time for a people of faith and conscience, for anyone who is committed to a vision of the beloved community, and especially those of us who are white, to show up and to continue to show up forcefully and non-violently for love and justice. Fear and hatred corrupt our humanity and cuts us off from the spirit, from the holy, from goodness and beauty and possibilities of creation. Only love can truly confront this corruption that puts our democracy, our liberty, and personal safety at risk. Love is more powerful than any weapon, even when it doesn't feel that way. The faith and courage of our ancestors in movements of resistance and liberation show us this truth. The faith and courage of our ancestors in movements of resistance and liberation show us this truth. Our ancestors were motivated by love. Let us turn to them. Toussaint Louverture, Nat Turner, Harriet Tubman, John Brown, the Union soldiers, the Abraham Lincoln Brigade that volunteered to fight the Spanish fascists, the Jewish resistance in the concentration camps and the ghettos. Did they love? Did they show up forcefully? Did they show up nonviolently? Throughout my life, I have known people who have loved, showed up forcefully, and with the intention of defending that love by any means necessary. Mike Wolfe, a steel worker. David Finley, a NIPSCO worker. Terry Rudd, a mother. Madi Cariff, an immigrant. Neitron Howard, a nurse. Moises Bernal, a school teacher. Greco Tolbert, a social worker. These are people that demanded equality and justice. Their contributions are an important part of the larger puzzle, this puzzle that includes many methods, and a puzzle that includes the use of force. Can they claim love in their desire to fight Nazis? I mean, it's difficult to love the oppressor. It's impossible, nigh impossible. Should we have expected our forefathers to do so in the face of genocide or slavery? Did they acknowledge the inherent worth and dignity of their oppressors? Whether or not their love extended to those who held them in chains, it's neither here nor there. It was the love of their brothers and sisters in chains, both literally and figuratively, that led them to action. Living in love can motivate us into a flurry of action, as I've laid the case for one here. Let love be our motivator towards equality and justice. What is love calling you to do? The world needs Unitarian Universalists to show up for justice with spiritual grounding, generosity, humility, courage, and concrete skills. It is a spiritual practice to choose love over fear, to be brave, to show up when we're called, to occupy space with loving resistance rather than fearful retreat. We are most powerful when we understand that all the issues we care most deeply about are fundamentally interlinked, and that each of us has a role to play in building a world in which all people can be free and thrive. So when we bring our best selves to our justice work, whichever specific issue or campaign it might be, we are choosing to side with love. Our church teaches us to embrace love. Let love guide your actions. Embrace love as your motivator. Hitch your wagon to the love of people. Is it a battle? It can be a battle. It can be an internal battle to build courage. It can be a battle to show up. It can be a battle to speak up, declare, and demand. It is a battle to commit. It can be a literal battle. But more than anything, it is a commitment to let love guide you in your work, whatever it may be. With love on our side, we should do well and be on the right side of history. Thank you. Now is a time in our service for our offering. We give to remind ourselves how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we love, because we believe in music and sacred space. We give with the faith that together we have enough. There will be an online link on the screen for both one-time and regular donations. You can use that link to make your donation. This month's charity for our loose change, for social change, is designated to the Ministerial Discretionary Fund. We will now have our closing hymn, Wayaya. And the words will be posted on the screen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know it's in, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard, we know, and the road will be muddy and rough, but we'll get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. get there. Heaven knows how we will get there. We know we will. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
As many of you know, Karl Wolff will not be in the pulpit without bringing some words from the canon of Marxist-Leninist history. And so, to that end, from the writings of Che Guevara, at the risk of seeming ridiculous, let me say that the true revolutionary is guided by great feelings of love. It is impossible to think of a genuine revolutionary lacking this quality. Perhaps it is one of the great dramas of the leader that he or she must combine a passionate spirit with a cold intelligence and make painful decisions without flinching. Our vanguard revolutionaries, or I guess to say in this case, our vanguard Unitarians, must idealize this love. We must idealize this love of the people, of the most sacred causes, and make it one and indivisible. They cannot descend with small doses of daily affection to the level where ordinary people put their love into practice. We must strive every day so that this love of living humanity is transformed into actual deeds, into acts that serve as examples, as a moving force. And now we may extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.